back on Reverie, working on our box for our stove. So I'm going to show you what we got completed so far. I went ahead and worked on my box for the gimbal for the cooktop. So what I did is I'm not very good on corners, so I got some brackets to help me get things into position, and I glued and screwed the box. So there's glued in between the butt joints and then 2 screws on each side. So that should, I'm gonna let the glue dry in a couple hours, and then I'm going to take the brackets off and then measure to put the top on the box. Okay, so we have to get creative in the sense that I don't have the table saws and all that kind of stuff to make this, you know, perfect with miter ends and all of that. So what I ended up doing is going to Home Depot and getting a nice piece of Baltic birch, and I had it cut to the size that I wanted for the tabletop. I actually had to make it a little bit bigger. I had to trim the edge, and then I got another piece of wood for the sides and had them cut it to length. So I had the measurements that I wanted for the box, so I had them cut it. And then what I did is I did a little bit of sanding and did butt joints with glue and screws. So once I got the box frame, and you saw me using those kind of corner tools, which by the way, they work really good. It was nice to have that to help me make a box, which I've never done before. I've actually cut more curves than I have cut square edges. And then I use kind of a straight edge or a straight end of the wood to create, you know, attach the top also with screws. Now, think about it, this is going to be hanging on a gimbal. It's going to have the stove here in the middle, and what I have to do is make sure that there's enough room for the swing of this box, and you know, next step right now is to cut the center piece, or cut the center hole to set the cooktop in. So in the instructions, we have the overall width, the overall depth, and the overall height. And then what we have to do is figure out the clearance. And according to this, our minimum size hole is 19 3/8 by 13 3/8. So what we have to do is measure this top and leave you know, come in from the edges in until we get the measurement that is calling for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a chalk line and a straight edge and a ruler to help me, you know, measure and find the center of the box, and then from the center of the box make sure I have these dimensions out. Now this calls for space, you know, from the edges and, you know, basically from the front and from the sides as to how much clearance you should have. Okay, after a lot of measuring, we got the cutout done, and it fits perfectly. So next is figuring out where we're going to put the gimbals. So the next trick that I have to pull is installing the gimbal. And we got the gimbal brackets, and normally if you buy a gimbal stove, it's going to have the holes already put in the right place. So the kit, I'm going to show you, this is a Dickinson Marine Gimbal Bracket kit, and basically what you have is the bracket that goes attached to the side of the galley, and then the pin goes in the stove box, because that's what's going to slide in and provide the gimbal action. So this is going to be fixed with 4 screws, and it's going to slide in. So the slide is basically a screw with a shim or a bushing, we want to call it that, and that's going to slide into the slot. And then once, I'm not going to pull all the way down because I don't want to mess with having to unlock it, but it's going to see, you can see the little pin there. Once it slides past that, it's going to be locked in place, so it's not going to come out. So, but because this is primarily for a pre-built stove, I have to do a little DIY on this. So what I did is I basically bought a longer version of the same screw. So I bought a 2.5 inch just to make sure I have enough for adjustment as I need it, because I may have to go out further or in further depending on where the stove ends up, you know, finding its balance point. So the bushing will go in here. Then I'm going to have a nut to lock 2 washers, and the wood is going to be in between the washers, like so. So I'm going to have, basically it's going to look something like this. The bushing will be on this side, that will slide into the gimbal bracket, and I'm locking it in with a locking nut. I'm going blank on the proper name, but you know what I'm talking about. So that, once I put it in place, is going to secure this pin on the wood so it won't be wobbling around. It's going to have plenty of pressure from both sides to keep it in position. And then you're going to have the bushing that's going to have play so this can swing back and forth. So that was kind of the solution to adapt that kit. Now, the trick now is with the stove on the box, I got to find the balance point. So I think by accident I came across this. I'm going to show you. So you can see that I have a round corner here. So what I'm going to do is, you know, take all that wood out of the way, but I'm going to start sliding this forward until I find a tipping point where this is just balanced on this edge here, and then I'm going to mark that spot. And that is probably going to be as close to the center of balance that I'm looking for to mount the gimbal. Now I can do a second test, which is to put a couple of wood screws on each side and hang a rope from there and lift it and see if it stays balanced. Now in most installations, what people end up doing is adding a little bit of weight to balance the stove. I'm going to try to do it as close as perfect as I can get it, and then, you know, the other piece I'll play with the adjustment, you know, with a little bit of weight, but at the least amount of weight you have to use, the better. The other part I have to address is securing the top to the box, so in case we ever, you know, flip upside down, this doesn't come flying out. So because the gimbal only flips so much, I don't think you can get it to do a whole 360. First of all, it's going to be plugged in, so it's not going to be able to do that. So I have to decide whether mounting some kind of a bracket from the top to secure it to the countertop, or something from underneath. I have to kind of experiment with that and see how that looks. So, all right, so I did a measurement. You see it there, we're pretty close to balance. We have a little breeze, so that may be affecting the measurement. But I marked the spot as about a 1/2 inch wide of contact on both sides, and they're the same distance from the front edge. So I'm pretty sure that's, you know, around that area is going to be my balance point. So I'm gonna take a stab at putting a couple of wood screws on each side, and then trying to lift it up with a line and see if I have it perfect. But this is, I mean, for my level of skill and what I'm doing here, I think this is but as good as I can get it. Well, the other thing mounting the brackets that we have to pay attention to is the height. We got to set the bracket, the horseshoe bracket, at the proper height, so when we slide the stove in, the top of the countertop is even with the other countertops that we have mounted here. So a lot of the details nobody tells you about when you're trying to get all this projects done. They show you everything after it's done, not what you have to go through to put it all together. But actually, it hasn't been that bad. It is very doable. Even if you don't have a whole lot of experience, you can work around the different challenges and get things to come together. So I have to clean up because this is starting to sprinkle, and get things tidy up here, but I'll come back tomorrow and finish it up. So I'll be back. Trying to finish up mounting the gimbal, and it's a little tricky because you have the cord to contend with. So when I started doing some test holes and putting screws in to try to find the balance point, the cord throw things out of whack. And then I have the hole is a little bit wider, so that I can slide the cooktop a little bit further back or forward to find the alignment point. So I found a good balance point. So now what I'm trying to do is find where to mount the gimbal bracket. Okay, so I think I found the spot. I have to leave about a 3/4 of an inch gap on the back so it can completely turn without hitting the backside. So I'm going to readjust and not move it, make sure that I can tip it over, and I think I'm gonna take a shot and drill the holes. All right, so I used the jig to drill the holes so I have a reference point. Then what I did is I put in one of the screws with the bushing, so I know that the height is correct. I put a level underneath, and once I have it level, I drill 2 pilot holes, so now I can flip it over and drill it, and hopefully it'll be positioned properly. All right, so we got our brackets center. So we're gonna mount now our system for the hookup and slide it in, put the cooktop on top, and we should be in business. Right. So I mounted it. I still have to make one more adjustment, but it'll flip all the way around. It'll never really flip all the way around because the cord will keep it, but it can probably get to about a 90. But at least I know that the way I mounted it, it'll spin all the way around. There's going to be an oven underneath here, so I need to make sure I leave. That's going to be a fixed position, so about 45 degrees should be plenty. Either way, either the cord is going to stop it from the backside, or if we're going the other way, it's going to hit the convection oven that's going to be underneath there, and that'll stop. But at least I know it works. The only thing, I don't know how it happened, because I was using a board across, is this side came out a little too low, so I'm gonna have to take it apart, move it up, and so that way it's even with this countertop. So I'm gonna do that right now, and then I'm gonna put the stove in and check the balance. All right. I found the balance point. I'm going to mount the locking brackets, and I need to plug it in, and I still have to secure this to the bottom of the box. It's really light, but it's right where I need it. What I need to do now is add the weight to balance it out and give it more stability. I guess now that I understand why they add weight to the gimbal, is really to provide more inertia and provide more stability. So I'll find the point for that. In the meantime, I'm going to install the bracket so I can lock it in place, and I can plug it in and I can test it. But we finally got our cooktop. We have the locking mechanism. The stove is plugged in, but I don't have any pots in here, so I'm not gonna test it today. I'll go ahead and test it probably tomorrow. This is exciting. I've been meaning to get this box done for a while, so this is great. So I'm gonna stop here, get some measurements, and come back tomorrow for a couple hours and try to get our shelf done. So see you tomorrow. So I went ahead and measured basically from that point up to here. I have the same distance on both sides, and then I use a level to draw the line where I'm going to attach the supports. And then I just have to cut a piece. Now the piece of wood that goes in here for the shelf is going to be longer on this side than that side, and that's because of the curve of the hull. So I have to take into account that when I'm cutting the wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use basically two supports that I'm going to, screw on the side, and then I put the board on top and I screw the board to this supports from the top side, and that will give me the shelf I need. Because the only thing that's going to support is the oven. I think these are going to be long enough. If not, I have a couple extra pieces, so I may just go the full length and basically screw the support on the side, and then put the shelf on top and screw it from the top so it doesn't move. And that's pretty much all it's going to take. I ordered some brackets, L-shaped brackets, that I'm going to use to secure this to the side of the box. So where the foots are for the stove, I'm going to take those out and put in the bracket, and then the bracket gets screwed to the side of the box on the inside. And that's going to keep this from moving inside of the box or popping out if it heals one way or the other. So now we have our shelf for the oven, and it's going to leave some clearance for the gimbal to move up and down. And down below we're going to have our pots and pans. So next thing I got to do is build a door that hangs here that we can open and close. So that's another task completed. I have to wait till Tuesday when the pots and pans come in and the oven come in, and we should be able to kind of test the entire galley. We can test the oven, test the stove. I'll have the brackets to secure the stovetop so it doesn't come off the platform. And once that's all set, then we can start working on the finishing. Whether I'm going to paint it or laminate it, I haven't decided yet. So I got to explore the options. But right now what I wanted is functional, and we got functional. So I'll be back Tuesday to wrap up this episode, and I'll show you how the galley works once we have everything in place. Well, good morning. So we are at the final stage. I got our oven in and our stove, and I'm going to do a little test. I got our pots and pans, and I'll show you that. And I think we are, at least for this phase of the galley, we have this phase completed. So next steps are going to be to seal and paint. But let me show you what we were able to accomplish. Okay, so we have the final piece of our galley. We got our convection toaster oven and our cooktop, and they're both plugged in. They're running through the inverter. And I just put this on toast. Basically see if it heats up, and it definitely is heating up, so I know it's working. The induction cooktop came with two racks, a broiler sheet and a pan at the bottom to collect the debris from bread and stuff when you're baking.
So it's really nice unit. It fits perfectly. So I'm gonna stop what I was doing, so I know it's turning on. And what I was saying in here, I'm going to put the push button latch. For now, I just got a little magnet that I'm going to install just to keep it close, but it's gonna help you know, get me through the painting process, and then I'll put a proper push button latch that's going to secure this lid. So I'm going to open this up and get my cookware down there, and we're going to fire up our induction cooktop and do a quick test. All of these items I bought through Amazon, so I put the links below if you're interested or want to get something similar. It's up to you. Over here, this is our cooktop that we just, or not the cooktop, but the pots and pans that we picked up. This are Duck's top, and they're, you know, it's a 9-piece induction ready cookware set. So you're basically getting two you know, pan fries, 3 pots with lids, and a little strainer thing. So this is what comes in the box. Is 2 fry pans, two fry pans, one small, one big. Our 3 pots with lids. I'm assuming this lids are not going to work for the. You want to cover the. I guess the little one does for your fry pan. So there's 3 and a pot holder. So this is kind of nice. So I'm going to put this guys away down below, and I'm going to boil some water on that pot and see how we do. So let me put this stuff away. Let me put some neoprene here, because this is pretty slippery and the pots are going to be sliding when you're sailing. So I'll probably put some neoprene or some kind of a non-skid on these piece of fiberglass, so when we're sailing, the pots are not rattling around. So I'm going to install a little magnet here for now, just to keep this closed. But that is working, so let's put our induction cooktop to the test. I'm going to measure about 1 liter of water, and I'm going to pour it in there, and we're going to time it and see how long it takes to boil. So the way the stove is designed, the big cooking area will go up to 1800 watts. The smaller area would only go up to 1300. And when you're using both cooktops, you have to keep the combination of the two about 1800 watts. So with that, we're gonna let this video run and see how long it takes for this water to come to a boil, and see how we do. In the meantime, let me check power over here. I have to do this because I have the refrigerator running and I forgot to look at how much power we're pulling out. But right now we're pulling 1224 watts, about 105 amps total current coming out. Yeah, at this moment, and that's with the refrigerator and the stove. Now, normally the refrigerator is on its own battery bank, but yesterday I was doing some testing and I moved it to the house bank. So normally the fridge wouldn't be there. But let's see how we do. You can see the little bubbles forming on the bottom. It's been about 1 minute 55 seconds since we started. So I'll do a video later, basically doing some comparisons on power consumption, using the kettle versus the cooktop, just so everybody can get an idea of kind of what happens when you're using all these electronic devices and running out of your house bank. It's been a lot of work to get this galley done. It hasn't been difficult work. It's just, for somebody that never did woodwork before, like me, it took some kind of planning and studying and figuring out the best way to do things. So, we're cruising ready now that we have a functioning galley. The other thing I'm going to do is probably put a piece of rod or something across here that will keep the stove from coming out, and I'll put another one down below, and so that's going to secure the oven in place. So when we're sailing, it's not going to slide. And the other thing I wanted to put it in there is because when the gimbal is acting, I want to make sure that if you know, we suddenly take a big heel or get knocked out by a wave, and we were doing something in the galley, and this, you know, slams down, it's not going to hit the oven. It'll have something like it'll act like a stopper to keep it from causing any damage. I mean, you don't feel any heat coming from the cooktop itself, which is kind of neat. The other thing I'm doing on the galley is I have one more fan, you know, cabin fan, and I'm going to install it here and probably try to find a position somewhere back here so it'll blow any smoke or anything, you know, any fumes from cooking out that way. The other thing is I'm replacing this port light with dead light, you know, it doesn't open, with a combo dead light port light, so it'll have a window, so we'll be able to open that and that'll let steam and heat and all that go out. It's taken to boil 1 liter of water, which is probably what you would use to do pasta. It takes about basically between 9 and 10 minutes to do that. So to shut this off, you basically lower the temperature all the way back down to the bottom, and then you can turn the power off. And it has the H, which is an indicator that the cooktop is hot. So a couple of the settings. This is a child lock, so you can lock each one individually on this stove. I'm gonna get this at an angle. This is an Impava induction cooktop. It has the timer. The plus and minus is for you to regulate either the temperature, so you can control it by temperature, or you can control it by wattage. Then you have this is what you use to select temperature or watts. You can see it there, temperature watts. So when you push that little hand, it'll switch and you can see both. That's the power button to turn on the one side, and you have the same set of controls over on this side for the other, you know, the other surface. So anyway, successful test. I'm gonna just cover this up and just let it sit. And I think let's see power now that we're done. So our power consumption, you know, with the lights and the refrigerator is about 51 watts, so about 1100 watts it was pulling through the inverter, or from the, you know, the inverter is pulling 1100 watts from the battery bank. All right, folks, we're gonna wrap it up here for this episode. We sorry it went a little long, but there was a lot of things to cover trying to build this gimbal box and you know, rebuild the galley. We're at a good stage now where we have a functional galley with cooking stove and an oven, and everything works, and cook, you know, pots and pans. So we're back in business. We really appreciate you watching our videos. If you like our videos, please click on the link below and subscribe to our channel. We're sharing everything we're doing with Reverie. Hopefully this will help you with your project. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to contact me through Facebook Messenger or through YouTube. I have several people call me because they had questions on the keel and other things on the boat that I've gone through myself. So I'm happy to share all that information freely. You know, if it's going to help you, I think it's worth it. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.